When you think about the mastery that you and I are really trying to get at, it's good to take a look at those who have been there and made it. The Nello. We celebrate today his resurrection, or his ascension, I should say. Last Wednesday was the day we celebrate the Nello's ascension. And if you look at his life and the life of the one that he suggested we look at, there is so much alike. When Nello was a child, he was quite young, but he insisted that he have his own altar in the attic, and he would spend many hours a day on his knees at his altar, even at the age of a very young age. When he would go to school, in elementary school, he carried a briefcase, which is quite different than others. People often mentioned, those who knew him in school, how serious he was about life. And so it was with Padre Pio. Padre Pio. He was a very interesting young man from early childhood. From early childhood, he had a sense of God. He had a favorite tree that he would go and sit under. And he would speak with God, and God would speak with him. At the same time, the devil would also test him as a child. He had 3 run-ins with the devil. One when he's I don't know whether it's 10 or 12 or something like that. Another one was, it was a later teenage, and then one was after he had gone to the monastery. Situations in which that he became so challenged by this evil. I think of the one in the later part of his teenage years, when he had this fight with the devil. The devil was throwing pots and pans and everything else at him. The next morning, he was all bruised up, cut, and so on. He really went through the hell of meeting this force's energy. And so it paid off in the later part of his life when they carried in this woman totally possessed, shouting, screaming, took 3 people to hold her down. He saw the devil close by. He looked at the devil, put up his hand over the woman, and just said, "Leave her in peace. Leave her in peace. Leave her in peace." And she collapsed. A person who from then on, the rest of his life, she was in the front row of all of his masses, always there to pray for him and work with him. As we begin to see and study these people, these great masters, there are so many things that we have gone through the same thing. Look at your children. They're very sensitive. When they are born, they still remember where they came from, and therefore they play with the playmates that you can't see, but they can. You watch them, you work with them. They also see their angels. They also have times when they have to face the devil. And if you are there when they are going through this with your understanding, you can assist them to become a Padre Pio, a Lanello. But it takes awareness of ourselves, who we are, and our own experiences, so that we can share them and bring them along. Padre Pio was quite an individual. He didn't go along with all the stuff that they force you and I to go along with. He lived out of the heart. I remember this one woman came. He was working with a women's group and they were praying and so on. And after everyone left except this woman, he said, "Why don't you have a prayer veil?" And she said, "Padre, I can't afford one." He felt it down deep and said, "Wait a minute." And he left. And he went back to the private part of the monastery. Mother Mary had a prayer veil on. He borrowed it and gave it to her. It's this kind of understanding and feeling deep within that causes each one of us to become that Christ. As Lanello suggested in that dictation, we have to learn to release everything. Don't judge. Don't hold things against people, because that puts you there with them. But rather, rise above that and let everyone be free. He was such a unique individual, this Padre Pio. He was most noted for his confessions. Not his confessions, but him being in a confessional and people lining up way long to meet, to work with him. There were many other priests, and they had confessionals too, but not very many people came to them. But Padre, they were lined way up. Why? Because they would start to make their confession. And when they were done, he would say, "And what about this?" And he would point out something that they had done against somebody. Or what about this? Or what about this? And then he would say to them, "And when you have made this right, come back. We will go from there." Oh, the elite didn't like him, because as they would come and they would make their confession, he would see right through it. Some of the time they were so far off that he would just say, "Enough. Go, and when you're ready, you want to pray and really want to work with this, you may come back." Others resented him, pointing out to them their sins. And so there was a lot of stuff talking about behind, jealousy of the other priests and bishops and archbishops. So much so that they would go to the Pope and tell him that he has to take this guy out. Don't let him do this anymore. He was so well known also for his masses, because when he led a mass, he lived that mass. He lived the persecution and the crucifixion of Christ. He would cry, he would go through the agony of that situation. Where other priests mass with 30 minutes, his sometimes reached 3 hours. The thing was, he had the church full of people. And when the other priests did their masses 30 minutes long, not too many people came. Created a problem. And so the higher-ups decided they should do something. And so they assigned him to the 5 a.m. Mass. That would take care of it. But it didn't. People started arriving at the church at 4 o'clock in the morning after hiking or walking or whatever, all the way to get there. Still the crowd was there and not to the others. It got to the point where they finally took away his right to do anything publicly. They gave him only permission to do his own private mass daily, that's all. For 2 years, he was not permitted to do what everyone felt great about. So as we begin to understand what it is that makes the miracle happen, the miracles of Lanello, the miracles of Padre Pio, it's the life of the heart, coming out of the heart, the reality, the real reality of life and light and love and peace and joy. It's this that really matters. When you read scripture, are you in that scripture? When you bless people, are you in that blessing? Or is it just something that you do as you go along? Or you get in the habit. You say, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. You say it without even thinking because you're thinking something else already. Or when you say, God bless you, are you giving some of that light of your heart to that person? Do we make our beingness the beingness of God? This is the question. When you compare the life of these two giants, when you take a look at the reaction of the people, why do they come? They aren't paid to come. They come because you feed them. You feed them from the Father. This is what you hear when you hear Lanello speak. This is what you hear and watch as you take the life of Pio. They called him Pio. That was his short name by the brothers in the monastery. Hey, Pio, Pio, where are you, Pio? Now you can say, Pio, Pio. He did so many miracles. He could be in prayer bowing at the altar. But people experience him come to them down in Australia. He was so real and so alive there that as he leaned against the bed, they could feel the bed move as he anointed them. But his body was back in Italy. It was during the World War II. The bombers were coming. They were supposed to bomb his city. But when the bombers got there to bomb the city, there was this monk up there at their level saying, go there, go away, go away. The bombers turned around and went back to England and landed with bombs in their holders, in their planes, which is against the rules. And I said, why did you guys bring this back? He said, well, when we got there to our target, there was a monk and he kept going this way. Tell him to get going. The same kind of thing happened when one of the bombers at another time was on fire. The tail gunner couldn't get out, so he jumped out. But he didn't have a parachute that works or something. It was Padre Pio who caught his head as he dropped to the ground. The man was so shaken and moved that a simple man like this could save his life, that he came later on looking up this priest who was there. Miracle after miracle after miracle. Even after his death, many miracles happened. And so while I was on staff, I happened into the office of another minister on staff, and she was crying. And I said to her, is there anything I can do? Can I help you? She said, my daughter is pregnant. She just got the message that the baby has Down syndrome, and I don't know what to do. I said, was it confirmed? She said, yes, another test. I said, you want a suggestion? She said, yes. I said, just give me a minute. I went back to my office. I had this statue of Padre Pio. I said, why don't you take this and give it to your daughter and hold it, have her hold it once every morning in meditation. And as she identifies with Padre Pio, ask Padre if he would heal her child. So she did. When the baby was born, a perfect baby. Several years later, the same kind of situation came up. We were in Chicago as the minister there. One of the keepers, some 100 miles away, called and said, we just got word that our new baby to be born has Down syndrome. I got in the car, took Padre's image, said the same thing to her. Every morning, tune in to Padre. Don't just say, Padre, I need your help. Become one with Padre and ask him, could you heal my baby? And as same thing happened, we got an email from the father who was a doctor, and he said, a prince was just born, totally well. When you begin to understand these masters are there for us, they can help us in all kinds of situations. They can stop an accident. They can guide you around a different way. They can work with you in all of your problems. Because we don't make use of this tremendous potential, we go through all kinds of problems. I want to say to you this day, as we celebrate the life and the resurrection and the ascension of our beloved Lanello, that you take a look at he and all of the things that he and Mother did, but also Padre Pio. You will find when you look up, go on the internet, look up Padre Pio. They have a 2-hour movie on him. It's life-changing. When you see what this man, what he went through, he lived this business of, he was in meditation at one point early in his monastery life. And he was watching the cross with Jesus on it, and the blood was painted down and so on. He became so one with that whole thing that he himself experienced what they called the stigmata. For 50 years, he walked this planet with feet that hurt because they were bleeding, hands that were bleeding, side that was bleeding. He identified so much that he actually became the situation. And then he turns to us and says, you need to forgive. You need to let go. You need to become the Christ. Become the Christ. Become. Go through the crucifixion. All of us do, one way or another. It's a time to become the Nello, to become Pia. Oh, my Father, Mother, God, allow myself, my being, to become as you are. For I commit all of my life unto that which is true reality.